You are live.
Wonderful.
Hi everyone, my name is Rosie Garcia. I'm going to be teaching Rainbow Skin, which is body painting basics and budgeting. This is my lovely moderator.
Hi, I'm Danger Cosplay. I will be moderating for Rosie today.
So I have been cosplaying since I was a very small child, probably too small of a child. And I got into Homestuck when I was younger. So if we'll look at the next slide, I started painting myself gray to look like an alien. And with that means, how do you paint yourself gray? How do I do that cost effectively because I'm young and can't spend hundreds of dollars? So back then I used mostly Snazaroo, which it's usually around $5, maybe 10. So it's one of the cheapest options out there. And Snazaroo, it's not the best in terms of not smudging or not fading, but it does the job. And if you learn how to seal it properly, which is going to be baby powder or translucent powders, and you learn all those techniques, it is very usable still. If you want slightly better quality, or actually noticeably better quality for similar price, we can go to the next slide and talk about Paradise Makeup, which is Mayron. And these are also water activated like Snazaroo. So what that means is you add water to the pan and it activates it, and then you can put it on your body and you can dilute it to make it more see-through, or you can use only a little bit of water and it stays really opaque as the color. So Mayron's really good quality. It's going to be closer to $10 usually, but as you can see from this old Widowmaker cosplay I have, it does the job really, really well. It covers, even if you're not porcelain, you can still get a lighter color. If you're lighter, you can still get a darker color. It lets you play a bit more. And I didn't have to work too hard to seal with it, which is really helpful, especially when you're trying to cover a lot of your body the day of a con. You don't want to spend 3 hours covering everything. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk about, so those two are water activated, and that means you use water as the base. This is alcohol activated makeup. And what that means is you use a little bit of high percentage alcohol and you mix it in instead of water. And that means the way to get it off is also with a special remover that's alcohol based. So if you start sweating, if it rains, this stuff isn't going to budge. And that is super awesome. However, you have to keep in mind that an alcohol based makeup is going to not let your pores breathe as much. So if you're covering your entire body, you don't want to do that for 12, 14 hours. If a cosplay is only like maybe neck up, if it's arms, or if you really need it, it's a good solid option, but it is going to be not the best for your skin. And you generally buy this in a palette as opposed to singles. The palettes can be $60 to $80 for a good quality one. So it is definitely an investment. And it's not something that I recommend unless you are going to be cosplaying intensely and frequently and willing to spend that money, but it is an option. And in the same world of alcohol activated, we can go to the next slide. And we have basically, there we go. We have airbrush kits. So I got one about a year ago for, I think $100 was a basic what you need type kit. And these are really useful if you need a very textured skin. So if you want to get a base covering of everything, you definitely want to stick to the water, to the pans, just because you use brushes and cover more area quickly. But yes, amazing. But if you want details, like I'm thinking if anyone plays Magic the Gathering, like Vraska has all this texture on her, that an airbrush is perfect for, because you can get all those weird details and lines and really embrace a lot of different funky things, and you can get all those really, like, the gradients so beautiful on an airbrush kit. But that is also on the higher end of things. And then here we have one of the lowest budget options I've discovered, which is using your own skin tone to your advantage and using eyeshadows. So if you're on the paler side, what would be really easy for you to do is anything in a gray tone, maybe a green tone, peaches, anything that you can probably work with eyeshadow. If you're a bit more mid-tone like myself, oranges, reds, anything super warm. And if you're a little darker, you can use emeralds, deep purples. Using those eyeshadows instead of the paint won't give you the pure block color that a body paint will, but it can still look like a skin tone if you use it effectively, which is what I'll be demoing in a few minutes. And then our last slide, I believe, is using Mehron Clown White. So if you specifically have characters that are white, you can use grease paint, and Mehron, the same company that does Paradise Paint, also does this Clown White, which is, I think, $10-ish. I have it right here. And that's what I use for Harley Quinn, because it is super, super thick. And if you really want to remove all traces of your natural skin tone, that thickness is so freaking helpful. So I cannot recommend anything else for Harley Quinn at this point. So with that being said, I think we can let the slides go, and I'm going to transition into doing some of Harley on this side of my face and some of Starfire on this side of my face to show you what you can really do with simple tools. So to start with Harley, I'm going to take that Mehron grease paint that I already discussed and just dip. I use a beauty blender because I actually like diluting the opacity just a bit. I think it's really fun when you can see some of the veins coming out in your hands, for example. So it takes a little longer with the beauty blender because you do have to plop it in and then buff it out, and it does shear it a bit, but I really like that effect. And if you want more of a blocked on effect, you want to really show nothing underneath, then I would recommend going in with a brush. But today we're going to do this. And as you see, I'm applying it by getting it some from the pan. And then I'm using a combination of dabbing it on and twisting it a little bit to get any parts that are sticking to my face because of a dry patch or whatever it could be. So yeah, and if we have any questions, I can start answering those as I just get this base layer on.
I'm already learning a lot. I'm really excited to see how it turns out. I've definitely tried doing full body painting before, and I've had a lot of struggles. So yeah, I'm sure you can do a really good job. I'm also like really excited. You said that you've had trouble getting really thick layers on with the beauty blender, and so the brush is better. And like that's something that I've really struggled with, to get thick, even layers. So yeah, that's already a good tip right there.
We also have one from the chat. Rachel has had trouble getting even coating with water-based skin cover like Paradise. Do you have any tips?
So honestly, if you're having trouble getting it thick enough, it's probably too much water. Because the more water you add, the more diluted the actual pigment is going to be. So you want to use as little water as you can to get it activated. And then when you're using a brush, let me just grab whatever I have lying here. When you're using a brush, you want to make sure you're making kind of X's, because that kind of doubles over anywhere you get. It hides brush marks a lot more, and it also doubles everywhere you put. It's getting hit twice. So that'll help make it really nice and coated. And not sure if self-promo is okay, but Cancellation Con is next weekend, and I'll be doing a similar panel, and I'll be using body paint. Like I'll be using, I think, Snazaroo and maybe Mehron. And so you'll get to see more of the body paint brush work in that panel if you're interested.
Awesome. It looks like we had another question from Wolf Girl. Do you have any options for sensitive skin?
I actually do have sensitive skin. I would recommend probably sticking with water-based, avoiding this grease paint. I would say if you have any eyeshadow brands that work for you and you can do eyeshadow for a certain skin tone, do that. And if you definitely need to use body paint, I would stick with probably Mehron, because it's a little higher quality, so it shouldn't have anything super bad for your skin, but it's also not the activated, which could clog your pores, and so would the grease paint. So yeah, I would say Mehron Paradise Paint is probably the best bet for sensitive skin.
Awesome.
Okay, so Harley's base coat looks pretty done. So part of making something look like a natural skin tone, and I'm just gonna leave it barely blended at the neck because this is really talking about the face for now. Part of making a skin tone look natural is letting the natural shadows of your skin come back. And so when you have a white skin tone, obviously you don't want to go in with like a dark brown contour. So what I generally recommend is using a light gray. And I actually recommend going drugstore for this if you can. I have some more expensive palettes that I'll be talking about for Starfire that I absolutely adore because they're so pigmented. But when you're working on white, you actually don't want as much pigment because you don't want to have to blend out all that. So it's easier to just start with the drugstore. Today I'm just using Rosie Nudes, and I'm just using this soft gray brown. And I'm going to use this to contour the way you would contour any face. So I'm going to go right here, contour the forehead, lightly on the cheek.
Contour face.
Always. But what this does is it gives me the shadow without actually adding too much warmth to the face, because anything that's too brown is going to make it look too alive, and then why paint yourself white if you're just going to look like pale again? So if you find the color that matches the same color family, and so if you're painting yourself green, you use a slightly darker green, or even I've done Poison Ivy, and if you want to do highlights, then you go for a yellow and then use a darker green, like a yellow to highlight, and then a darker green for the shadows. So it's just learning the color family of your character and knowing what colors you can use to blush and to shadow that won't like destroy the effect of the color. So that looks good for the cheeks. I'm gonna do a little bit on the nose, just for fun.
Yeah, wow, it's already making a difference.
Yeah. Also, brows are so important when you're doing face paint because my brow is pretty much gone now. And so knowing what color you want to bring it back. I know with Harley the temptation is blonde, but if you're going for comic book accuracy, it's actually black eyebrows. So I'm going to get my eyebrow pencil and just a random black eyeshadow and fill that in quickly. And a thing to be careful about, unfortunately, with eyebrows, if you mess up eyebrows on a normal face, you can go over it with foundation, but it's not super easy to go over with more grease paint or more body paint. So you really want to practice eyebrows ahead of time and know what you want to do, so you don't have to go back and forth a bunch of times, because that's no fun.
Yep, eyebrows are my weak spot. Yep.
I really recommend just following your natural brow line as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
There are ways, and I'm sure I could talk about this at depth another time if anyone's curious about like blocking eyebrows, doing that stuff. There's ways to make that work. But unless a character has really, really distinct eyebrows, I really just recommend finding your natural shape and just practicing running over it with a soft shadow, so it kind of does the work for you. Like, I'm not putting a lot of effort. I'm just running some black eyeshadow over my natural hairs, and already I have an eyebrow.
Wow, yeah.
Nothing special to it. I don't like pluck or mess with my eyebrows otherwise. You just follow it naturally, and it does the work for you.
That's awesome. That was also really fast. I don't think I can do that fast.
Yeah, I'm not the person to get up at 4 a.m. before a convention. I want stuff that's effective, that's cheap, and that's going to let me wake up as late as possible and still get to the con on time. So that's
awesome. I need those skills. I need those skills. I'm the person at like 4 a.m. getting ready for the parade, like putting on my eyebrows.
So I'm gonna slap on some pink eyeshadow because that's the half of the Harley's face that I happen to do. And what I will say is when you're going over paint like this, I would recommend stamping a bit more before you start to blend, because if you just start throwing stuff on willy-nilly, either the pink will get everywhere, which then I have to fix that, or it will blend, it'll just get a little muddy with the white. So if I just like make sure the pink is on there, and then I start to let it mix with the white just a bit at the edges, it gets a much smoother effect. Stamp it on and then blend a bit.
I love that color. That's so pretty.
Yeah, it's from Sephora's Pantone collection, which I don't really, I've got a lot of, yeah, I just stockpile cheap things when I can find them. because you never know when that random eyeshadow palette or like weird colored lipstick you found at the dollar store is going to be the exact thing you need to save a cosplay.
Oh, totally.
So I'm a huge hoarder. I shouldn't be recommending that, but I am. Okay.
Got a question from Wolf Girl. You said you did Homestuck cosplays. How did you blush for different blood colors without it looking wrong against the gray? I don't understand any of those words, so hopefully you do.
I do.
Okay.
So when I did Homestuck, I did mostly Briska. I think I also did Aradia for a while, and maybe I'm not sure. But anyways, so once you put the gray on, it's really about finding a desaturated color. So something that's super, super bold is always going to stand out against the gray and feel weird. But if you get a slightly duller version of the color, that really helps. And the other thing is blending. So if I was going to do like a blue blush, let me grab something from down here. If I'm going to take a blue blush and put it on my hand, I'm just grabbing a blue eyeshadow right now. If I put it here and then just leave it, yeah, it looks super awkward. But the more I can really just let that go into my skin and just spend the time, only use a tiny, tiny bit of product and just really let it blend in, the more that like it starts, yes, the blue is still weird, especially because I'm against a human skin tone, but the more you let a small amount just blend everywhere, the more it starts to become natural. And if you ever do go into alcohol-based paints, what they tend to do is actually put the blood colors underneath the base. So that doesn't really work when you're layering water activated, but if you do go to like the far end of this, they'll actually put some blue first to get the skin tone, and then they'll put the gray. So that's like how it works on the higher end. But on the lower end, it's really just a little bit of a desaturated color and just let it blend for as long as it takes. With that, since I've grabbed the eyeshadow, I'm going to switch over to Starfire for a bit. And so yeah, this is me using my mid-tone skin to my advantage. And basically what I'm doing is taking a very yellowy light orange, and this is the palette that I showed in my slides. It's the Color Grain Vivid Pigments. I think it's $30, but you get a full rainbow. And I'm taking this like lighter yellowy orange and kind of putting it where you would highlight a face. So anywhere that's going to be hit by the sun almost. So kind of under the eyes, which feels super weird to do, but trust me. Under the eyes, I start putting this like lighter orange and letting it go right there. And then I'm going to take the same one and put it in the middle of the forehead, let that come down the nose. And like I said, for a mid-tone, this is a color that comes pretty naturally to me, so I can take advantage of that. If you have a different natural skin tone, there are definitely different colors that this will work better for. I'm also just going over the lid, even though I will put eyeshadow. And this is a place you also want to highlight so you can contour around it. So that's like my lighter orange. And I'm already starting to look less of a human skin tone on this side. And then I'm going to take a much brighter orange, which is called Splash in this specific palette, but anything just neon as you can find. And this is what I'm going to use to really contour everywhere else. So that's going to be my forehead.
Constantinople asked, and I'm actually curious about this too, do you use any kind of primer when you're doing body painting?
Yes, I use the same primer I would to do makeup, which is really whatever I have at hand. I use a lot of stuff from Sephora, but anything drugstore that's just a general makeup primer is helpful for my face. And then in addition, and then for the rest of my body, I would just moisturize like crazy because this stuff gets so freaking drying. So the best thing for your skin to make sure, yes, it applies well, but also that your skin's not dying afterwards, is to just moisturize maybe half an hour to an hour if you can before, or even the night before, moisturize like crazy, just to make sure your skin soaks it in and that it's not going to mix with the paint. So let it dry. The moisturizer needs to dry, but you know. So let it soak into your skin and then put it right on top. And then, yeah, for the face, I would also add a primer. But really, any generic face primer you can find should do the trick.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah. And so the thing with eyeshadow is, well, on this side, I was talking about like the subtlety is super helpful and not going too intense with any colors. When you're doing eyeshadow, it's actually a lot easier to go a little too heavy in some places and then fix it. So it's eyeshadow is obviously not as intensely pigmented, even a good quality one. So it's a lot easier to get the base on and then blend it out so it actually looks believable. And then I see I'm looking a little redder than I'd like to today, so I'm going to go in with some extra yellow to just make sure it's really reading orange.
Yeah, but like already, even just blending it out, you can tell like all the warmth that's coming through in the right places.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, like I could easily buy an orange body paint and it would work just as well, but I know this kind of creates a little bit more natural to, and I wore Starfire to PAX East, and so many people were stopping me and they were like, how is your skin like that? Because we all know how body paint works. You know how it looks on a person, even when they're super talented. You're like, oh, that's body paint. But no one could figure out how I had so much dimension to my face. And even if you aren't naturally mid-tone, so Starfire isn't possible, you can do this level of eyeshadow contouring and highlighting after you put a body paint on. So if you have the time and you have a character like a Homestuck character that is gray but with blue undertones, you can really sit there and anywhere you would naturally blush, so like your cheeks, you can go for shoulders, your nose, you can find all these places. Even if anyone watches doll making tutorials, anywhere they would blush a doll, so like elbows, you can find all those places to put your character's blood color for Homestuck or just a natural blood color, and darken those places slightly to make it feel more real than just the one color that the body paint's going to give you. So this can be used as like a hack to avoid body painting as I am now, and it also can easily be used to enhance your body painting and make it more dimensional.
Especially for photography in cons, I feel like you really have to have that contouring. Photography can wash you out really quickly.
And that's actually part of it. In my free time, I'm a full-time student, and then I also model. Those are like the two things I do besides cosplay. And so I think modeling has given me a much better sense of what I need to do in a cosplay to help the photographer get the best photo possible. Because this looks very, very intense in person right now, but on camera, it's already looking pretty normal. And so the camera's going to blur things out, and you really want to make it as high impact as possible so it photographs well.
Right. I feel like a lot of cosplayers, especially if they're not really used to wearing makeup, they always go a little too subtle. I like seeing those really great contours.
Yeah, I think we're scared to look like clowns, but so many of these characters are so far from reality that you have to embrace that, or you're not doing them the proper justice, in my opinion.
Totally, yeah.
Like I remember, I think the first time this is such a random thing to be self-conscious about, but the first time I did Diva from Overwatch, she has these pink triangles on her face. And the first time I was painting them on, I was like, I feel so silly and weird. And like, why am I doing? I was fully fine painting myself purple, but it was something felt so weird about like, I'm going to have these big triangles on my cheeks. But I committed and made them huge. And I know some people make them a little more small and subtle, and it's cute. But when you really get the high impact of like the giant triangles, there's just something so captivating about seeing that on the face and seeing that in the photos.
Oh yeah, yeah, I love it. Especially that cartoony aesthetic. It works really well.
Yeah, so fun.
Wolf Girl has a question. If you do cosplay makeup specifically for a photo shoot, is there anything that you do differently?
I would say go a little bit more intense. Like I was just saying, if you're thinking about wanting to get the best photo, you are going to want to overdo things like contour, like anything you can exact. I might go for a more natural eyelash. I like using false eyelashes for cosplays where it makes sense. And I think the big ones don't photograph too well because it hides so much of the makeup that you spent time working on in a photo. So I would say probably smaller lashes and bigger everything else would be my go-to. So I'm just finishing some eye makeup here on Harley's side. So Harley has very dark everything around the eyes. And I would generally go through like a eyeliner that's good for the waterline because you don't want to use, you can use a normal eyeliner, like a liquid eyeliner for your waterline, but it's not going to feel pleasant, especially if you have contacts like myself or you're wearing colored contacts. It starts to get really cloudy and messy easily. So I would not recommend that. Get the proper eyeliner for the job.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Just gonna slap on some liquid eyeliner on this side and the same on Starfire. And that's also part of it. I would take what you're naturally good at in makeup. If you have anything you feel comfortable with, like I'm really good at lining my lips, or use that to your advantage. Don't decide, oh, well, this character is not really an eyeliner person, so even though I'm really good at creating eyeliner, I'm gonna skip or I'm gonna doubt myself. Do what feels right for you. I know my eye shape and my face type, and I look best in like a cat eye. And so unless a character very distinctly has something that isn't a cat eye, I'm gonna stick to that as my baseline. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like cosplay is about transforming, but it's also about bringing yourself into the character. So don't panic that you aren't doing something that's right. And even if it is a little bit off, do what's going to make you feel the best about how you look and make you happiest.
Awesome. That's a good tip, I feel like, for all things cosplay.
Yeah. So putting some white on the under eye to make my eyes pop for Starfire. Whereas this is a lot darker and smokier already. I don't know what I need to do next. I'm gonna put some purple. Oh, I'll talk about this for now. So I have a specific color of lipstick that I love for Starfire. It's from Jeffree Star, I think. But I don't have it with me, and sometimes I don't have stuff with me. And what's a really good hack if you need a very specific lip color and you don't have the option is you take chapstick. I'm going to rub that just on this side for now. And then you take an eyeshadow that you trust, and I'm going to go back into the colorful palette and take this little lilac because that's what Starfire is. And you pack eyeshadow onto the brush and you just start applying it. So.
Whoa. Yeah, I've never heard of that. That's awesome.
It's not the most pleasant, admittedly. Like if you're going to be eating at a con, you don't want this to be your go-to. But if you, day of the con, didn't pack something and you don't want to go run and buy it, this is a very easy, simple hack.
Who cares about eating? Cosplay is sacrifice.
And you can always reapply this later. So there, that's a simple purple look. I'm going to darken this side a little bit. What's not ideal about this also is it can stick to dry spaces. So if you know you're going to need to use this hack, try to drink a lot of water, hydrate yourself, use a chapstick beforehand because you don't want it to clump in any one place and make that part darker. But if you really need a green lip and just don't have it, this is definitely, like, it works. It does the job. And then on Harley's side, I'm going to use actual lipstick because I have red.
Yeah, Wolf Girl says, if you're at a con, you have no money left for eating anyway, right? Like, maybe you can scrape together that $5 for that Papa John's, and you'll be glad to have it.
I wish it was $5. Paxi's prices were insane. That was my first time this year, and I had so much fun. But, like, the cheapest of food was $12. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to be prepared.
In my bag.
Yeah, snacks. That is the nice thing about ConFromHome. Easy access to your fridge at all times.
Yes. Oh, also, speaking of snacks, this has nothing to do with my panel, but I highly recommend picking characters that you can sneak snacks into.
Yes.
I have a utility belt for one of my Harleys that has a pouch that's designated for flaming hot Cheetos.
Nice.
Like, if you can find the opportunity to sneak food onto your person, do it. It's worth it. Okay, that's the red lip. Let's see how. So yeah, so also I should have done this sooner because I'm gonna touch myself up real quick. Let me talk about sealing on the body, on the grease paint side real quickly before I let this smudge anymore. So this is also really helpful for using a water activated paint. When you are doing water activated or grease paint or anything that doesn't naturally perfectly seal the outside world, you want to get stuff to help dry it out, basically. So what the go-to when I was doing Homestuck was baby powder, because everyone could find it underneath their sink, and it does actually work really well. If you want to get something specifically for it, I use a translucent powder. This is, I think, Tarte, but drugstore works just as well. So you just take any white powder and I'm going to use a little sponge today, but you can use a brush, you can use your fingers if that's all you have, really just anything that you can pack it on with. I'm going to take this and pack it all over the white. And so if I'm covering a large area, I would take basically probably a big fluffy brush and do that all over my arms or legs or wherever else I'm doing it. But if I'm doing a small area like my face or somewhere, like, people are going to be looking at my face probably more closely than my elbow. So I want to take the time to really make sure it gets everywhere. So this is the last step. You could also do this before you contour. I just generally will do this and then not go over anywhere I've contoured as intensely. Like, they'll get a light brushing and everywhere else gets packed on. But it really doesn't matter the order because they're both powders. They're both going to help seal things in a way. And also, this is a drag queen tip basically, but if I contour first and then put my powder on, what I get to do is create a harsher line right here. So if I put a little bit too much powder here, I can get a really sharp line. And if you have a character who's a bit more intense, someone like Harley, you can get a really crisp, intense contour, which is fun. And if you want the softer look, then definitely go back and blend it out. So it gives you a lot of opportunity to play and basically see what is going to work well for you and what energy you want to kind of give off with the makeup. Do you want it to be some versions of Harley or some versions that are white are going to be, I want this to look like paint. And so you probably wouldn't seal it. And even before you left the house, you can start smudging it and letting it crease, maybe apply it while you're in a weird position so it gets those wrinkles in it. And some versions you want to look very natural, like what I was going for today. So I'm going to try to let the white feel as natural as possible by letting it be less opaque, and then add makeup to make it show that, like, oh, she did makeup on top of the white skin. So it's really understanding what you want to say with your character in your makeup and experimenting to see how the best way to get that.
Got another user question. Will this sealing also work to keep it coming off on clothes?
Nothing that I've tried is perfectly proof. Nothing will come off, but the sealant does help a lot. And also, if you are using water activated paint specifically or grease paint, all that stuff does wash out. And especially if you are sealed, even if a little bit does transfer onto clothes, it'll be a small enough amount that it'll be easy to wash out. I think the only way to really, there's no 100% effective, but your best options are to do priming beforehand, put it on in a nice even layer. You can even do multiple layers of the powder if that helps. If that helps your skin, if you're especially on the oilier side. Definitely multiple layers of powder can be helpful. Nothing is 100% effective, especially, but a tip for that. So the thing that I at least worry the most about is the palms of my hands. because everything else, yes, it can get on your clothes and it can be difficult, but it's still not going to rub, like your shoulder's not going to touch that much stuff at a con. So what I generally like doing is preemptively, I do a much thinner coat on my hand. So when I, like the back of my hand, I'd probably get to match to my face, how it is right now. And then my actual hand, I would keep it very light, probably only a little bit more paint on it than this. So this is going to fade pretty quickly, but you can reapply it if it starts to bother you for any photos, or just you don't like the look of it. You can reapply this by just keeping your paint in your bag and just grab it, smack it on, you're done. If you use only a little bit of paint and then seal it, it'll start to fade eventually, but it's not so much paint that it really is going to have the chance, because even this is so little that like if I start touching stuff, there's nothing for it to wipe off because there's so little on it, and it's just really like ripping my skin only. So just having a very light coat on your hands, as light as you can get it while it still looks like there's white on it, will help you from being able to transfer, because there's just not much to transfer. So that's always helpful.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So everybody do your laundry.
Yes. It really, like, my mother, who I think is watching right now, would kill me if this stuff didn't wash out. And it does.
Yeah.
Like, I spent too much of my childhood running around in 300 different colors for me to not have stained many a thing. And it does wash out of everything if you're going to spend the time scrubbing it. So it's nothing to be afraid of. As long as you don't stain the con. Like, don't stain any panel rooms, please.
Yeah. I remember that about the Homestuck cosplayers more than anything. I remember lots of gray stains.
Well, that's the thing. There was this several month or to maybe a couple of year period where cosplay was popular, and so it was getting cosplayed a lot. Like Homestuck was so big, but it was a bunch of young kids who hadn't yet learned how to seal and paint. And so they were running around with unsealed paint, staining everything. And body paint was suddenly like this horrifying thing that you just had to stay away from. And then once the Homestuck kids got older, myself included, we all were like, oh, if we just grab some baby powder or some translucent powder or any sort of a white or anything of that world, we won't stain the con and get yelled at. How crazy.
And neither will anybody else that has watched our panel. Your panel.
That's
Rosie's
the
panel.
So we're getting towards the home stretch. I'm going to be putting on lashes and doing finishing touches. So this is, if you got any burning questions, I'm all ears. I'm just grabbing generic brush tip lash adhesive and slapping it on some, I think they're Kiss or Ardell or something. Lashes are so optional, but I have tiny little lashes and I have a lot of characters who are drawn with very bold lashes. So I like getting that look when possible. But also definitely if you start using false lashes, trim them to your eye size. Because if I used most lashes the way I bought them, it looks insane. And that look.
Yeah. I feel like they make them extra big, like you're supposed to trim them. They don't fit anybody right out of the box.
What I will say is there are certain characters, and I might do this demo in the future. There are some characters that if you're trying to get more of an anime look, if you're trying to get, like sometimes when I do Diva, if you keep them extra long, you can actually kind of use the excess and glue it to your eyeliner line. So you just keep extending it, and it does create a very like anime big eye look. That is not the look you want for a lot of cosplays. There are many looks that would feel weird and clunky in. So that's why I say trim, but I like to keep a handful of 2 long ones for when I do stuff like Diva, or if I do, I did Toga from My Hero Academia, and I let the way too long lash extend, and it made my eyes look like cartoon big. And that's fun for a handful of looks. So I like keeping a couple just to make sure I have my options open.
Totally. We do have a couple of viewer questions. First, what tips would you give to people who are new to using airbrushes?
I would honestly just say like YouTube is your best friend, and for me it was I like grabbing a piece of cardboard and also like my arm and just sitting there and figuring out based on what I wanted to use my airbrush for, what pressures work, how far it feels right for how much I want to cover. Just really taking the time to learn your machine before you just run into a con. So just like getting very comfortable with the settings of the machine and what is good for you. I definitely had a piece of cardboard that I just would play and draw on to get kind of used to holding it and used to using it effectively before panicking with it the day of. And YouTube, I think, is really your friend. Even if you can't find any tutorials for the character you want, you can watch cake decorating with airbrushes. There are so many different things that airbrush is used for these days that you can really find different worlds and see, oh, this cake decorating tip actually would be really helpful for blending this one thing for this character, or maybe this artwork that someone did really inspires this. So really just taking the time to learn your machine and get comfortable with it is really, because every machine is different and everyone is at a different place with like how comfortable you are with painting stuff on your skin. So not rushing it and really giving yourself, I had like extra paint to just waste basically playing until I was comfortable.
Okay, Rosie is a witch. I don't know how she just put that eyelash on perfectly the first time. I've never done that in my entire life.
Try I swear that's it.
I saw my own face in the corner and I was just like,
yeah, it really is about, like, I'll take this one before I put glue on it. So you bend it, you roll it, like I almost like the far edges, let me get it against white background. I almost try to get them to touch before, like the edges to touch, like I want it almost a circle, just to make sure it's really ready to curve around my eye. I kind of sit there and bend it as it's drying. And you make sure it's near dry, like this one turns clear as it dries, so I wait until like half of it looks clear at least. And then this one's already trimmed, but I will sit there and place it up against my eye and say like, oh, does that make me look crazy? Or does that look like the right amount of lash for me? Okay, I'll cut some more off, or it's good. So really, like, and I have two more in my little set right here. So I have ones that I know I can trust that I can throw on, and then I have others in packages that I know still need to be trimmed and figured out. Also, if you're reusing lashes, which I definitely do, I would recommend making sure you pull off any gunk after each use or even before you put it on again, because the glue does build up and make it a lot harder to apply because there's a thicker band and there's just uneven texture. So if you make sure that you really clean so it's as close to new as possible every time, that is super helpful and makes it a lot easier.
Awesome. Another question. Would you ever recommend mixing body paints to achieve the ideal color? And how would you go about doing that?
So I would grab almost like the bottom of the lid, anything you can mix in. It depends. It really depends on personal preference, I would say, because you could either sit there with the two pans and just like go back and forth with each and kind of muddle them together, but then both pans are going to get contaminated very quickly. So if you want to not contaminate them, if you're going to do this cosplay a lot, you can even take a chunk of the dry color out of the pan and put it into a new container so you can leave them together mixed. Or if you're going to do this every now and then, I would activate it first and then have a separate container that you just put some of the activated of each color and mix it to the color you like. So that's like a one-time use, really quick, and you can wash that afterwards. If you are going to do it a lot, like I have a costume coming up that I think might be a custom color, and I'm nervous about that. I would actually just take a chunk of each, so I know that I can get the same color every time, to make sure that if I love that blue green I created, I can always get it. But it might even be best to mix to make sure you know what color you like, and then just take chunks from the pan, because it is a big pan. This is grease paint, so it's not the most relevant, but I've used this for Harley plenty of times and it has barely made a dent. And so if I wanted to cut like a quarter of it out to put in a different pan to mix my ideal color, it's not gonna make me not have this anymore, really. I'll still have plenty of this, and I get my mixed color every single time.
Yeah, that's really smart. I can't imagine getting, halfway down and all you got left is like your arm and you run out of color and then you're trying to match it. Like, that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, I know I'd get super stressed if I had to mix halfway through, so it might be good to just make a big batch. So I'm bending this together.
Now we're getting lash comments in the stream. It says, I'm gonna read them. I'm so into this. Like, I'm learning a ton. If you are new to false lashes, if you put your mirror on your table and then you put your elbows on the side of the table, look down into your mirror and put the lash on that way, it works way quicker because your hands are stabilized, elbows on the table, and your eyes are closed because you're looking down, but you can still see the mirror. That's a tip from a drag queen.
Yes,
Thank you, drag queens. You guys have done so much for the community.
Lashes, do them with your eyes closed. My God.
Yeah, wow. I've never
Yeah,
tried that. I'll have to try that.
Yeah, my drama teacher actually taught me that way, like kind of looking down, almost closed, and putting them on. Because once you're comfortable, especially I wear contacts, so I'm just used to poking around my eyes. Once you know kind of what you're doing, you can slap them on with your eyes open, and that means you can see what you're doing a little better. But it is more of a risk of poking yourself. So when you're new, definitely like try to keep your eyes closed. And if you get it at that correct, like half dry, like almost dry, but still tacky, that's what like they call it. You want the glue to be tacky. If you make sure you're at that point and really be patient at getting the glue to that point. If I did, like actually while you were talking, I kind of put this one on wrong for half a second. It was the right amount that I could pull it off and put it back on, and it's applied and staying perfectly now. So if you really are patient and let it get to the right level and not so drippy as that towards the beginning or not completely dry, you get at that right middle spot. Even if you do close your eyes and you've missed a corner, something's a little off, you have enough time to adjust it and make it actually fit. I also like squeezing it to my actual lashes, because my lashes are down here, and if I just squeeze them together, I make sure it's really on the right line. It's on that eye line. So it's going to be secure and it's going to look more natural. Okay. And I think I'm done with my 2 looks.
That's awesome. Can we get a side by side?
Yeah.
Like, can we see each one?
Here's Harley.
Amazing.
And here's Starfire.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, especially turning, you can see all the reds picking up the light. It's really cool.
I'll definitely be posting photos of these a bit more close up and products I've used on my Instagram later. If anyone's like, that specific orange or that specific lipstick is amazing, I need it, I'll definitely be putting all the products on my Instagram. Yeah. Any last
What's your Instagram? You want to shout it out?
Yeah, it's Rosie Garcia Cosplay.
Rosie
Just my full
Garcia
name
Cosplay.
and cosplay. Yeah. So any last questions do we have?
Any more audience questions from anybody about body painting? I learned a ton. This is a great panel.
So
I'm glad I joined.
All right, I guess we are done. Thank you everyone for being so great and asking great questions and having fun comments about eyelashes. And thank you, Danger Cosplay. You've been so great as moderator.
Of course. Thank you, Rosie. It's again Rosie Garcia Cosplay.
Yeah. Thank you.